Hi folks, welcome to the Prepared Homestead. This is Travis. Thank you all for stopping by to watch. So do you really think that Russia would use a nuclear weapon on Ukraine? I mean, it's been thrown around and talked about, and I mentioned it yesterday in the video. That's something that some people are really worried, and yet a lot of other people are saying there's no way. It's not going to happen. I mean, for weeks now, Russia has been alluding to the fact that they could potentially use a nuclear weapon. And then yesterday, the Kremlin came out and said, oh, no, 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 we're not. Except they actually didn't say that. That was an interpretation of them saying that they're, not really interested in using, or it would most likely not happen. I mean, it was kind of a mixing of words, and the media basically spun it as the Kremlin says that they're not going to do it. So I do believe that it's still on the table, but is there a real threat there? And if it happens, I mean, is that a direct threat to us? I mean, certainly here in the United States, we're not going to feel any direct effects of it, but would it make things worse? Would it escalate things? And would it completely change the whole ballgame? There's other things going on that we also need to talk about. We're back at the cyber warfare stuff that we've been talking about for the last couple of weeks, and Russia has really been getting hit pretty bad. And now the FBI is saying that it looks like we are in their crosshairs and could be next. So I want to get into some of that and maybe a few other things in today's video. Before I get started, we talk about it all the time, stocking up, and you really should be. And there's a company out there that can help you in your preparedness journey. They can help you get stocked up on stuff. And for right now, their prices are still, pretty good. And that's with My Patriot Supply. And you can go to preparewithtravis.com to look at the stuff that they have. They set up that page just for my listeners, and they're offering some really good deals on there. And I'm telling you, with the food prices that keep going up, okay, food prices are just getting higher and higher. It's making their products a little less of a price difference, because they're keeping their prices the same, at least for now. Okay, they're going to eventually have to go up. Everybody is going up. Mountain House has gone up like 25% in price. Several other companies have increased their prices, and My Patriot Supply is doing their very best to keep the prices down low. It's not a product that I would recommend you just dump all of your money into. And if you do have enough to buy a year or two supply of it, that's great. But most people don't. But I would recommend having at least a 30 to 60 day, maybe a 90 day. They have a pretty good 90-day supply package on there. Because if things got really crazy really fast, it would be very beneficial to have something very easy to fix. You're frantic, the world's ending, the grid just went down, we had a major cyber attack, maybe even a nuke was released, and we're frantic, and we're trying to pull ourselves together and establish what we've been planning for all along, and to keep moving forward. And that's not really the time that you want to spend a lot of trying to prepare food. And with this, you just add some hot water to it, and you've got a meal, and a full meal, restaurant quality. So if you go over to preparewithtravis.com, you can find some information about the products that they offer there. All right, so I talked about it yesterday, that it looks like that. Now, bear with me on this, okay? Give me a little leeway, have a little patience here. It looks like the media is reporting that, at least on one, they kind of talk out of both sides of their mouth. And if you haven't figured that out yet, then I don't know what to tell you. But anyways, it looks like, according to them, that Russia has been doing a horrible job in Ukraine. It looks like that they have lost a horrible amount of troops and equipment, and that they're finally starting to back down. That the Ukrainian media is reporting, and Ukrainian government, that Russia is pulling back from Kiev. The Russians have said that also. They have made what it looks like to be some headway in peace talks. And as I reported yesterday, the stock market shot up, oil prices went down, gold, silver went down. Now that's all kind of changed today, because it's all fluid. That stuff changes constantly. But And then our State Department and our Pentagon both said that they don't believe it. They don't believe it. They think that, what Russia says and what Russia does are two different things, and they think that they're just repositioning their troops and getting ready for a greater offensive. Now, I've tried to make it quite clear since the beginning of all this that I am not picking sides, because I believe they're both part of the whole system. They're both corrupt. They're both they're part of this whole new world order. And the question whether or not they're all in cahoots as part of a Great Reset plan, or they're opposing factions fighting for dominance in the Great Reset plan, almost is irrelevant to me, because I think that's what they are. There are certainly innocent parties involved, the Ukrainian people and these Russians that are suffering from this, and I feel for them. But as far as picking sides, you're not going to find that on this channel. I try to be very objective as much as I can. But folks, you all should know this, that for at least the last 2 years, I mean, some of you may be new to all this, but for the last 2 years, the same people that have been, that are telling you what's going on in Russia and Ukraine and what's really happening, are the same people that have been lying to you for 2 years about a health crisis, about a this, and about a that, and about all this other stuff. It's the same people that's been lying to you about the economy and inflation and supply chain and lockdowns and flatten the curves and all this. That's the same people that's been lying to you for years about stuff. The media and the politicians, and I really couldn't care less which party they are on, because they're all politicians, okay? I mean, I don't care. I don't get into the political parties. I'm not a Republican. I'm not a Democrat. And the fact is that the same people that have been lying to us for years about all these other big things, especially in the last 2 years, are the same people that's telling us what's going on in Russia. It's very difficult for us to get any intel actually from Russia, and it's not that I would necessarily believe Russian intel either, because they're lying too. I mean, the Russians have been known for a very, very long time to be masters of psychological operations. They know what they're doing. And so it's very hard for me to swallow the pill that the media is selling on what the condition of Russia and what their plans are. Now, I know a lot of you probably are sick and tired of Russia and Ukraine and the whole story, and you want to get on to other subjects. And I do too. I really do. But I'm telling you, there are some things that we certainly need to talk about. And one of the big ones is this whole nuclear threat. Some of you have been following this on other channels. I have not talked about it greatly on this channel. But I will tell you that my gut feeling is that the odds of a nuke being used within the next 12 months, I think, are increasing and are getting into that pretty high level. Russia has been talking about this, okay? And then all of a sudden now the media is saying, oh, no, Russia, the Kremlin says that they've taken that off the table. Well, that's not exactly what the Kremlin said to begin with, but let's just say that it was. It makes no sense for them to be talking about this, and when they're actually not doing very well, to take it off. In fact, right now would be the time that Russia might want to use a tactical nuke, if in fact they're not doing very well against Ukraine. Do you think that the Russians, I mean, these are most of the people that are running the Russian government and the Russian military, the top brass, were former Soviet Union, okay? It's not been that long ago. I know there's a few millennials that watch this channel and you don't realize that. But for the rest of us, we remember the Soviet Union, okay? It's not that long ago. These are the people that were running it then, or at least part of that government and part of that military. They're not stupid, okay? The Russians are a very, very formidable foe, okay? They may not be as equal to us in some technological areas and some economic areas, but that doesn't mean that they're not smart. I mean, they know what they're doing. If they didn't, the Cold War wouldn't have lasted as long as it did. It wouldn't have been such a big deal for 50 years, 40 some years for the Cold War. So to say that they went in poorly planned and poorly equipped and were shocked and caught off guard that the Ukrainians had such an amazing military, even though they're constantly begging for the world to come help them, and then they're going to tuck tail and run and just pretend like that their plans have changed, I'm having a hard time believing that. This whole nuclear threat, though, is something that we should all be concerned with. Does that mean that we're going to get nuked here in the United States? Maybe not, probably not, but it will show, if they were to use one, it would show that they are very serious about using a nuke. And a lot of people believe that if they did use one, that America probably would just back down. As much as we want to believe America would step up, I mean, that's going to be a hard one. If I was the president, that would be a hard one. If they dropped a nuke, you know, really about one of your only options to really protect us is to retaliate with another nuke on Russia. And I don't think that that would happen. And I'm not saying that's the best idea. I'm just saying that may be the only way to protect Americans, because if we turn around and engaged Russia at that point, we just have to know that the odds of us getting nuked are going to be pretty good. But, you know, the whole thing that a lot of people think about is they're expecting big, massive nukes. And I think if Russia did this, it would be a tactical, which are smaller nukes, okay? We're not talking something that's going to take out large regions of a country. It may only take out part of a city with the initial blast. Some of them can be as small to just take out a few blocks. But I believe that that's possible. And to back that up, there's some information that just came out today. If you remember a couple of weeks ago, it was in the news that Russia flew planes into Sweden, into their airspace. Now, again, this is according to the media, so it could all be a bunch of bunk, but just looking at it on the surface, taking it face value, the Swedish people are claiming that these were Russian fighter jets that purposely, they have intel now, that they purposely flew into Swedish airspace and that they were carrying nuclear payloads. Now, if that is in fact true, I think that's probably the biggest news since Russia invaded Ukraine. That's massively huge. And if I'm incorrect in believing that, someone please correct me. But if Russian fighter jets purposely and under order entered Swedish airspace, armed with nuclear bombs, that's, I mean, if I'm the Swedish government, I'm going to consider that very much an act of war and have some real conversations on whether or not we retaliate because of that. Now, here's something to think about. These were supposedly attached to fighter jets, okay? Now, there's a lot of conspiracy already starting that these may have been actually Ukrainians, because they're the same planes that the Ukrainians also fly. So there's that conspiracy that it was actually Ukrainians doing this as a false flag. But let's not even get into that, because that's something I can't find any credible information on. Let's just say if it was Russians and they're carrying nukes on fighter jets, that must mean that those were tactical nukes, because I can't imagine them putting a large nuclear payload on a tactical fighter jet that is not going to be able to really get out of the area in time. That the big nukes are what they put on the big strategic bombers that fly at very high altitudes so that the plane can get out of the way once they drop the payload. The small ones is what they put on the fighter jets. So if all this story is correct, then the odds are that those were tactical nukes, which tells me that there's an increased possibility that they would use a tactical nuke on the Ukrainians. Romania has already been distributing potassium iodide tablets to their civilian population. It's hard to even find these tablets in Europe. They're selling out, okay? So there's a strong possibility there. Russia, Vladimir Putin, that's being reported at least, that Putin and most of his command staff have now left to go hide in a bunker up in Siberia, based on some intel coming out of Russia. It is believable. I'm not saying it's true, but it is believable. And then this pullback of his troops in Kiev makes me think that instead of retreating, that it could be getting your troops out of the way so that you could potentially drop a tactical nuke and kind of end this. Now, the only thing that makes me think that that wouldn't happen is that Kiev is a very historical city. And I know some of you are probably going to jump up and say, Putin doesn't care about that. I think he does, potentially, because everything he said up to now is talking about the motherland of Russia and bringing back basically that Russian Empire. Not necessarily the Soviet Union, but the Russian Empire. Kiev was actually the first capital city of Russia long, long ago. It's one of the oldest cities in Europe, and it's one of the most historical cities. So I don't know that he would necessarily be willing to destroy the city with all of the historical value there, not just Ukrainian historical value, but a lot of Russian historical value in Kiev. So that would be one thing that would kind of make me think differently. Now, let's switch gears here real quick to the cyber threat because basically Moscow, it seems, has been hit with some massive cyber attacks, and large portions of Moscow have been down. Over the last week, they've really been struggling keeping things going in Moscow in a lot of sectors because of massive cyber attacks. Some of this is believed to be directly from our government, and a lot of this, or most of it, is from hacking groups like Anonymous, which, as you all know, a lot of those are at times paid by the CIA and the NSA. I know I don't have any proof whatsoever of that, but I'm not an idiot. Now, if that's true, Russia has made it clear that that kind of stuff is considered an act of war. They would consider that an act of war. And if all of this is true, are we to expect some retaliation from that? And well, it's possible we already are. The FBI has reported they've identified 52 critical infrastructure places in the United States that have the malware already on them. This Ragnarok malware, this is the same malware software that they believe is connected to Russia, that's been used in the past, that was used to shut down the pipeline down in the southeast. And they've connected this to Russian hackers. And the FBI is saying that they have discovered it on several key critical infrastructure sites here in the United States and in agencies, and that they're working to try to remove that. Does that mean, I don't know what that means. Does that mean that at any moment in time, a Russian hacker could send a code and enact that ransomware software and shut down whatever it is it's on? I don't know, but it does sound like that there's stuff going on. So folks, in the end, I don't think that this has slowed down, and I think that we should be very concerned, because I would think that if a tactical nuke was dropped, or even, or a bigger nuke or anything that was dropped in Ukraine, I think that it would cause absolute havoc in the markets. The financial, everything would just go crazy for a while. It might even cause our own stock market to crash. It would continue and further and speed up this whole food shortage stuff, because just of the panic. Just the panic alone would cause that, because most people, well, no one really living, anyone living has ever seen anything like that, and the amount of fear, the shock, and all that would bring, I think, would be substantial. I think we could see a retaliation here in the United States, not towards Russia, but to our own people, meaning that we could very well see some rapid changing of laws and policies, much like the Patriot Act happen again, just to protect America. This whole food shortage stuff, it's getting real, and I think something like that would just exacerbate the whole thing. There's an article here, the president of BlackRock. If you don't know who BlackRock is, shame on you, you should know. They're one of the most powerful entities on this planet. They control $10 trillion in assets. And he's flat out saying that a food shortages are going to be real. And he says that the younger generation, that they're soft, and that they've never experienced anything like this. This is coming from his mouth. And he's telling people to buckle up, because it's going to get bad. It's going to get really bad. Already the estimates are that Americans, the average American household, should see somewhere in the neighborhood of $3,500 to $5,500 in increase of just cost of living just this year alone. $5,500. I mean, think of many of you sitting right now, a lot of you sitting watching this. If the cost for you to just exist, for you to keep the lights on, for you to keep your belly filled, increased by $5,500, are you going to be able to exist? Will you be able to keep paying your house bill and your car bill and all that kind of stuff? And we're not talking the cost of running your cell phone. We're talking the cost to eat, the cost to pay bills, to keep your lights on, to keep fuel in your vehicle, are going to increase by $5,500. Potentially. That's a lot, folks. It's not going to get any better for a while. And this whole Russia-Ukraine thing, I think it's just a setup. I think that's all it is. And I could go more in detail on that, of why I think it's going on and how I think it does connect to the Great Reset. But we're running out of time on this video. I've gone a lot longer than I intended to. The point is, folks, is you've got to get ready. And I think the things that are happening there are directly going to affect us, and it's going to affect us in a negative way. I could be wrong. Russia may actually be backing down. All that's being told is true. Maybe Putin is realizing he can't win this war and he's going to back down. Maybe, but I don't believe it just yet. And I'm going to need a lot more to make me believe that. So folks, get your houses in order. Prepare yourselves mentally, physically, and spiritually. Thank you all for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.